Hello, my welcome to my 295 channel. I'm JJ Booksmart, and today I figured I'd sit down and record a video that I've been wanting to make for a while now, which is a novel versus movie adaptation. Okay, so essentially we're gonna talk about the novel, we're gonna talk about the movie, and then we're gonna talk about them combined. My thoughts and opinions. This one being a spicy subject, as it's talked about one of my favorite books of all time that I've read like 4 or 5 times, which I can definitely say is like one of my favorite horror novels, teen slasher novels I've ever read. And that is Clowns in a Motherfucking Cornfield. And then its adaptation, which is Clowns in a Motherfucking Cornfield. Okay? This is by Adam Sarsi. This is by the directors of something evil. The Chainsaw one, where the wood chipper, which is why I thought like it was gonna be more violent. It was not. The gore level here was lacking. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of it because I have some thoughts. I will have to mention before we get started, being a favorite book, a book that I read every Halloween. This is my Halloween read. I read it earlier this year, I read it earlier last year, but I still end up picking it up for Halloween. It makes me want to wish that the movie was as good as the novel so I could watch the movie every Halloween. But I don't know if that's gonna happen. I've yet to decide. I have some thoughts. Let's first go into details about the novel, because we're gonna start with the novel first. I've talked about Clowns in Cornfield several different times on my channel and several different vlogs where I'm detailing my thoughts and opinions. You have the October wrap-up video, which is like an hour and a half long, that I talked about the first and second book. Then you have the when the third book came out, where I read all 3 back to back, where I re-talk about the first and second book, but the second book on reread and how much I enjoyed it, and the third book how I think it's the long lost sister that probably should have been Sade Goss. I know the author doesn't agree, which is fair. In both those videos, I think I pretty much keep it pretty spoiler free, whereas this is not the case here. This is a video full of spoilers. I'll give you a little bit of taste of what a spoiler, non-spoiler review looks like, but I will have to say, unless the projects are vastly different, they're gonna pretty much stay the same. The story begins with a group of teens. They're at this old like mill type of place where there's a pond and there's like a lake and you can jump into it, and they're all getting drunk. And our main character here, Cole, his little sister is with them. She's like 15, he's like 17. It's the difference. No, she's like 13, he's like 16. I think is what it is. And she decides to be bold and jump off the top of the tower, and she ends up dying, and that is the prologue. Then we jump to Quinn Maybrook. I want to make sure I got that right. I wasn't like thinking about the actress. Quinn Maybrook, who comes into Kettle Springs, or she comes into Kettle Springs because her dad gets offered a job. Her mother had previously died. That's all we know. We don't know any more information than that. And then we very much early on meet a group of cast of characters, including Cole and a few other people. And then we also learn that Friendo is like a mascot, which is this clown. And then people start dying, and we don't understand why. And that is like the briefest synopsis. I would say pretty much true to a true slasher. The opening has a little bit of gore and violence, but not like in the slasher nature. And then about 35% into the novel, it truly picks up and it does not let you go. However, this time around, because I did like a mix of reading physically, because I actually have the book and listening to it, I do find that there are parts of it that are a bit slower. I've also read it 5 times, so take that for a grain of salt. The first time I read it, it flew by. Like, once it got going, it didn't stop. So, that being said, let's talk a little bit of spoilers here, because, like, that's the big things. Like, let's talk about the big things. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what you think. Well, actually, it's not, because I have been under the impression, when I read it the first time, I had no idea what it was about. And I thought it was supernatural, like Freddy or Jason. But it's actually more in line with, like, Ghostface, in the sense of, like, there's multiple clowns trying to murder these people, these children. It's actually a whole town trying to kill all these children because they believe they're delinquents in their sins and that they should be punished for their actions. Our main cast of teens, which I feel like a lot of people are going to find annoying: Janet, Ronnie, Matt, Cole, Russ, and also Quinn herself. Outside of Quinn, they all run a YouTube channel. Well, outside of Russ, I should say. They all run a YouTube channel. And in this YouTube channel, they typically provide with pranks. Pranking teachers, pranking each other, filming really gory videos of slashers and stuff, and that seems to be the consensus. The novel kicks off with them filming a YouTube video where the sister dies, and it just continues to build from there. We also are aware that in the beginning of the novel that Cole is here for arson. They believe that he burnt down a very important thing when it comes to his family business, and there's rumors going on if it was done on purpose for suicide or if it was on an accident. No one really knows. It's never really revealed either. It's kind of talked about in sequels, but it's not like super revealed in my opinion. That being said, the kills are great. We learn really early on that it's the entire town. I would say once the person, like I can't think of the name, like the mayor dies, he gets stabbed with an ice pick. You basically learn that this town wants to do something about the pest problem that is teenagers. They want to live in a world before our time. They want to stay backwards in that time. They want to cement themselves there. And they're run by Cole's father, who is like the kingpin behind it all because of this death, because of his daughter dying, and it like fractured the entire family. The kills are great. They're violent, they're gory, they're intense. We have a variety of different kills. We have stabs, we have shots, we have like decapitations. They're variety, they're gory, and they definitely live up to the hype. And once you have more than one clown running around doing this, which you learn very early on in the novel, which I do really enjoy, and you also learn that it is the people in the town, it's like free game. Also very important to note is that they're really only after the core 6 or 7 characters. However, there's a lot of people that can be injured and bloodied and like whole 9 yards with it. So that's also like, I think, really important to note. Quinn as a final girl, I also think makes a marking here. Now, I could not tell if Quinn is just, in the novel, she's very much a final girl and she has a lot of final girl moments. She takes down the first clown with a shotgun. She does all these things that she's not really sure she wants to, but she will do to survive. We'll talk about it, but I feel like the movie really takes a lot of that agency out of her. Here also, like, Cole and her are friends. There's a slight flirtation in the beginning, but it's pretty much learned really early on that he doesn't really have much flirtation with anybody. He's pretty much to himself. So when the reveal that him and Russ are actually secret lovers comes out, it's not like a big plot twist or a shock. It just casually makes sense, and they just kind of fall in line together, which I think is really beautiful and adds more layers to this very complicated plot. And I like all the moving pieces. I like how the father gets brought into the mix. I like the fact that they chose him particularly because of the death of their mother. She overdosed. I enjoyed all these aspects, and it makes the book a personal 5 out of 5 for me. I would recommend it greatly. The first book is a lot like Scream. The second book is a lot like Purge. The third book is like a lot like if you combine both of those franchises and you gave it a religious tale, okay? It's still kind of culty, still kind of purgy, like 10 times more in the religion camp, which it makes sense. It's called the Church of Friend. Okay. Also, I would say Quinn as a character also grows there. So let's move over to the movie. The movie I landed on a 3.5. I think objectively it makes the most sense. Also, when you compare it to all the other movies I've seen this year, objectively, like on my own personal basis of feelings, this is how it made me feel, was a 3.5. It's respectable, but I went in with extremely, and I mean ultra high expectations. Some of the highest expectations I got into a movie so far this year. There's only been a few others, and there's only a few more coming up that have the same level because it is my favorite book of all time, or one of my favorite books of all time, especially in the genre that it's in and what it's doing. I personally find a slasher novel to be really hard to land and to really work, and I'm really happy it doesn't have a supernatural element, as a lot of slashers, especially teen slashers that are gory and that hit you in the right spot and are gay or whatever it might be, tend to go on the more entity side of things, which are fine, but it's not what I'm looking for when I'm reading a slasher. I do like a good mix, but like, that's besides the point. Let's not get into Stephen Graham Jones. He's a totally different beast, okay? The movie, on the other hand, takes it in a way that I don't know if it fully worked for me. On one hand, you could say that it was a really cheap movie to make, and so some of the production values or some of the changes are simply because they couldn't afford certain things. I respect that, and I'm really happy the movie's doing so well, so when it eventually does get a sequel, which I do feel like it will get, because it's doing so immensely well, especially for the company that produced it, I think that we will get a proper sequel to it. For instance, the movie doesn't even have the epilogue. The movie is the same plot, so I'm not going to do a non-spoiler review for it. We're just going to jump directly into like my thoughts and opinions on it. I didn't like the opening. I think not having the sister's death as the opening, and instead of throwing in this tradition on Founders Day, which is apparently what the movie was trying to imply, which is they kill off a group of teens every Founders Day to make the town cleanse? I don't know. I didn't get it. I didn't get the vibe, but I understood kind of what they were trying to do based on some of the images. Also, in my opinion, because the first death that we see is someone getting picked up and like killed with like a pitchfork in the air. It's used too often in this movie, We have people dying with chainsaws. We have people dying also being lifted up. We have people dying with pitchforks being lifted up twice, if not 3 times. It's just a very similar death, which I'm assuming works really well for the budget and everything else because you've already have mechanics, you already know exactly how to shoot it. Which logically, like from a business standpoint, makes sense, but from a creative standpoint is lacking for me as a viewer. Let's talk characters and story. The story, like I said, pretty much takes place except for that opening. It's now a group of people making some jokes and some flirty banter, and then you think they're gonna have sex, and then they both end up dying, a whole 9 yards. And then we jump into present day, which present day does follow Quinn Fabray, played by Katie Douglas, who I think does an excellent job. However, she is quite small, which I do think Quinn would be quite small. The only difference here is I've always pictured Quinn with blonde hair, but I don't think it's ever. I think it's more specified that she had dark hair in the novel. I just don't ever picture it. Anyway, that's a nitpicky little thing. They take away a lot of her agency. So in the novel, in the movie, the only person who has a gun is Russ. Russ is the person who has all the guns. However, Russ has like 4 or 5 different guns, a handgun, and that's like a big thing. Like a lot of these characters have a lot of good moments in the novel to shine. And in the movie, a lot of these characters are just really unlikable and have 0 moments of redemption. Take Janet, for instance. Janet is injured really early on in the novel. I guess I'm doing a more comparison. I don't have a... You can just see my anger. I don't know how to talk about objectively without comparing it, so I'm sorry, but I guess we're doing a bit of a mesh. Let me try to get off on that tangent and go back to the movie itself. I felt like Frenda the Clown looked amazing, and I felt like every Frenda looked amazing. However, Frenda was very stupid, and that was also quite annoying because like a part of the scary factor is that they're so smart and that they're so swift to the point where you think that they're not like you think they're supernatural. In the novel, they survive gunshot wounds, they survive all these things. In the movie, they don't. So it makes it a bit comical. Also, something else to take note of, something that I did not like at all, is I do think it's pretty similar, but when all the clowns start coming after them after they kill the first clown off, I didn't like how they all kind of just popped up. In the novel, it's like slowly introduced that there's more than one clown, and once again, it's so much further past the point. Janet is already injured by this point, and she realizes that there's more than one clown, that it's not just this one, she believes it's cops. And I just think it's better done in the novel than it is in the movie. However, I understand that the movie had to show you. I just felt like it was a little too comical in my opinion. And that's also another thing. I think the movie is a little bit too much of a comedy, and I think it did take away from other elements. Also, killing off Matt so early, I think, was a problem. I think Matt is such an integral character to the 3rd act. And once again, it proves that Quinn has a moment to shine. She takes out these 2 people to show her growth. It's violent, it's visceral, and she feels horrible for doing it, but she is surviving, and it is taken from her, which I find very annoying. She does kill Sheriff Dunn, which I do like, but with the cattle prod, I just wish she had like a gun or a shotgun. They do introduce her baton, which becomes really prevalent in future novels. Don't feel like the Quinn Fabray that we got was a true final girl, and she didn't have a true final girl moment. In my opinion, Russ and Cole both overshined her. Russ is in the movie for like 2 seconds, so you can blink and you can miss him. He's really just there for a kiss and impossible like suicide to save the day, which is interesting. And then Cole has a lot of things. Cole and Quinn's relationship pissed me the most off. When I saw it with my husband, he was scared that they were going to die the whole time. I was pissed that they were kissing. I was pissed that there's not 1, but 2 heavily, like very heavy makeout sessions throughout the movie that really made me mad. They never kiss in the novel. It's never like that, and I just don't like the fact that it's like it comes off as more like a plot twist that he's gay, and I don't like that. I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. It pissed me off. It pissed me off. Overall, I enjoyed the 3rd act. I think like it's pretty true. I think some of it's I don't know, I don't like the final death. I think it's a little bit over the top and not fully working. Also, the ending is not explained. It's not explained that 6 months later, she's graduated from high school, she's going off to college to set up the sequel. She just drives away, which I find really weird. And I think the ending in the novel where they're in the diner and they're kind of explaining what the future could behold, I think it's much smarter, and I think it would have worked better. Also including the epilogue, I think would have worked better. As you can see here, the comparison here is that the book is better. However, I would say if you've never read the book, it might be a good movie. I don't know. I have mixed thoughts. I do plan on seeing it multiple more times. I hope it does turn into a cozy watch for me and become comfort, and I can just understand the differences and accept them as they are. At this very moment in time, I was extremely disappointed, and I'd love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.